What's going on, Falcon fan? This your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video, guys. And today we all know what's going on. It's the dead time of the off season. Our Atlanta Falcons, and the organization is getting ready for a full 18-week season coming up here soon. It's going to be 2025 season. It's going to be awesome. We hope. So those guys taking a break, much needed break. However, they need to be ready to come in for camp, and we're going to get this thing rolling. But I just want to talk Falcon football with you guys today. And it was this article that came out about our general manager Terry Fontenot, and I wanted to just go over how much scrutiny that the Atlanta Falcons organization get, because they kind of go against the trends and the history of how you're supposed to build a team and things like that, and they always get questioned about the moves they make. So just looking at how Terry Fontenot operates around the Atlanta Falcons, and so we want to talk about that today. um and at the end of the day, will it work, right? Your Our thoughts, how we think moving with Terry Fontenot is going to work in the future. But I just think it's an interesting topic because you know so many people think they have the blueprint how to build a successful organization. I mean, you look around some of the franchises that have been doing it for a long time, and the successful ones. I just think it has a lot to do with luck, but it has about how you run. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs organization, you know they always, so especially in the last decade or so, they always been having winning ways. The Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Um, those teams that see how they always know how to retool and get right back, back into the being a contender in this league. So that's what you want to. The Atlanta Falcons want to try to start to be that team. Until Matt Ryan got here, the Atlanta Falcons never had a back-to-back winning season, and that's kind of where you look and trying to figure out how you can get the Atlanta Falcons to be an organization that was always trying to contend to be, you know, in the tournament. Once you get in the tournament, we all know once you get in the playoff, anything could happen. But that's where the Atlanta Falcons. It's been 7 years since Atlanta Falcons, going on about 8 years now, where the Atlanta Falcons have not been in the playoffs. So, it has to be a change here. Terry Fontenot is going to his fourth season, so this is a big season for him. But I just want to sit down and get you guys' thoughts, and I'm going to give mine as well about what we think about this organization. First, we're going to talk about a move that was made. Even though the Falcons are off, they still making moves, um, trying to build this 90-man roster out for training camp. So we'll talk about that and get your thoughts on this regime. So, guys, with that being said, if you have not already, go ahead and please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the notification bell so you know I drop another video. Please hit the like button, so I know you guys out here to talk about. Then please share my video throughout YouTube universe so more people can come here and talk about. That's right, these Atlanta Falcons. So the first thing we're going to talk about today, like I said, Atlanta Falcons did make a move. They brought in UFL leading rusher to the team, Joshawn Corbin. This guy led the UFL in rushing yards during the 2025 season while playing with the San Antonio Baramas. In 10 games, Corbin totaled 97 carries for 514 yards. Doesn't seem like a lot, but he had 4 touchdowns along with 18 receptions for 138 yards. This guy is a smaller guy that really shows good contact balance, which I really liked about him. His contact balance they showed on film. He's a smaller guy, but he's twitchy, and a guy come in. Of course, he's not going to be a guy that's going to come in and take over one of our 2 leading rushers that we got here. But I like what Atlanta Falcons go find talent, right? Because the more talent you put on your team, diamonds in the rough. We do know that this might be Tyler Algier last season, which this is not a good somebody that you want to say going to be the same type of runner, right? Because this guy be more like Bijan, a guy who's going to be try to make you miss and utilize his speed instead of a guy that's going to get downhill and punish you like Tyler Algier will. But I think this is a guy that come in. He could also play in special teams. He had 253 yards as a kick returner, this season as well. So bringing up the total yards he had for the San Antonio team was about 904 yards. Right now, of course, the Atlanta Falcons already had 90 guys on the team, so they had to make a corresponding move, and that's where they released Jace McCullough. That's the running back they took last year from the University of Alabama. Now, he was put on the injury reserve for a knee in week 15 last year, so that could be the reason why they was trying to find a replacement there. They also brought in a undrafted guy from Michigan State. They already still got Carlos Washington there, so that running back room is going to be good. And if you want to just look at this as a camp body, you definitely can look at it that way. But I think this is a good signing for the Atlanta Falcons. Bring the more talented guys in. This guy led the league, the UFL, in rushing yards, right? So, you want to make the team better. Bring this guy in, competition, whatever you need to do to make your team better. So, this is not going to shock the world, be a big move, anything like this. I don't think it's going to affect the way the Atlanta Falcons are going to play in 2025, but you never know, right? You got a guy that come in and, not, God forbid, if one of our guys go down, come in and he could, contribute in some kind of way like that. So Jashawn Corbin coming in, Jace McCullough on his way out. Give me your thoughts on that. What you guys think about Atlanta Falcons signing the UFL leading rusher from the San Antonio Ramos. All right, good to go. All right, real quick. All right, so there you have it, guys. My next topic, what I definitely want to get into, is talking about, this article that I mentioned that's out on our general manager Terry Fontenot. In the article, the title is "Rebels: How Terry Fontenot, the NFL most fearless GM, is driving the Atlanta Falcons into title contention." That's what the title says. And it's written by Tyler Doon, right? So if you want to go out and read this article in its full entirety, go ahead and do that. But I'm just going to take a couple quotes from Terry Fontenot out of it today. Then we're going to get into what I think, about what all this talking about and my thoughts on it. All right. So in the article, one of the things that Terry Fontenot talked about, because one thing about the Atlanta Falcons, I talked about this at when I started talking, just in the beginning of this podcast, where a lot of national media and former GMs and scouts and things kind of look at the moves that the Atlanta Falcons make, and they head scratching moves, right? Like last year, of course, they shook the NFL by paying Kirk Cousins $180 million, then going out and drafting Michael Penix, right? You can even go back and look at this year when they picked another pass rusher, moved up into the first round and put another pass rusher, right? So like I said, things that's unorthodox to other GMs and things like that, Terry Fontenot and the Atlanta Falcons organization kind of have a beat to their own drum. They don't go down the what would this person think, things like that. They have conviction, they believe what they believe, and they they go ahead and act on it, right? That's what they do. And one of his quotes in this article, there's an article about iPhone, right? And it says how stupid it is and how it would never work. Think about that. Now. And that was right. When the iPhone first came out, a lot of people thought that iPhone was stupid. It's never going to work. And now most people in America, most people around the world has an iPhone, and it's so user friendly, and it's now people use it for everything, right? A lot of people today might be looking at my YouTube channel, right, on their phones, right? So many content creators utilize the iPhone. I know I use it when I go, to the Falcons games. I go to the training camp, things like that. It's useful, right? So just this one quote. Think about it. You're right. you never know what's going to happen. People said that about Google. People said about internet. So many things. When you look back, we can go all the way back when people said that the Earth was flat, right? And how crazy that was. And now look at us now. So, there's so many things that you can't just take people opinions and don't have your own, and then that's where you start to go down the wrong path, right? Because everybody else doing it, we're going to do it too, right? Another quote he had said was, "We empower our scouts, we empower our coaches, we empower our analytics. We want a lot of smart people that are working really hard and are confident enough not to worry about the perception outside the building, right?" We know it wasn't popular to take Michael Penix last year, but we spent all our time, and we had faith and belief in this building. So everybody questioned that move, even myself, right? When it happened, I was like, what the hell are they doing? Right? That was a dumb pick, whatever. But these guys, like I said, mentioned before, they had the conviction. They believed, they believed that they was doing what was best for the organization for now and for the future. And now a year later, we always like, man, that was a good move, right? Because now we kind of feel like we might have our franchise quarterback. At the time, it was not popular. It was not popular. And anybody say it was popular, they lying, because you can go back and look at the reactions. That's the good thing about social media and things like that. Because you can go back and look at my reaction on draft night last year, and it was wild, right? So the last thing he said was, the confidence in our building, our people, our process that we go through, we can ignore the outside and do everything we can to believe is going to get us to championship that we are seeking. That's where it really boils down to. The last part, they believe that the moves they're making is going to deliver them a championship. And that's why if you have, an organization, especially for our sports franchise, especially for our Atlanta Falcons, and they believe the moves they making, right? It's not trying to cut money. It's not trying to, penny pinch or anything like that. It's all about trying to get to a championship. And if they could do that, that's what it really boils down to. You might not like the way, the things went down, but if in the end result end up in the championship for the Atlanta Falcons franchise, that's all you can ask for. So I love the way, Terry Fontenot and the way they built this, right? They like he said, they empower their coaching staff, they empower their scouts, right? They believe and they're convicted, right? It's not one person saying this is going to be my way, and if you don't like it, no. Everybody put their opinion in, and they try to come up with the best decision when they think. Right? When we heard about the all the people that went out to Washington last year, they could have told us, right? But we all were just caught up into that would not make any sense. We all thought that. That's why when it happened, it was such a shock, because everybody goes with the flow. Everybody does the same way. This is how it has to be done, right? This is how it has to be done. But Atlanta Falcons, they thinking with their own mind, they have their own conviction, and they make the moves that they make that's going to get to, like I said, that sentence at the end, getting to a championship. And that's where you got to have your mindset at, especially when you're leading an organization, the GM, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't start to show results in that's where you lose your job. So you can't worry about if it's going to be popular, or if people are going to call me stupid, or I don't know what I'm doing, anything like that. Because if you believe what you're doing, right, and you can be happy with that, at the end of the day, if you do lose your job, you shouldn't have any regrets. That's what it boils down, because you did it your way, and that's the way you went down, burning, right? If you're gonna go down, with the ship, go down doing it your way. And basically, based off this article, that's what Terry Fontenot said. You know, that's how the Atlanta organization is built right now. They do it in their way, They don't care what nobody else think. All right. So one thing I want to go down and just go down the history of this regime, right? And I'm not going to go into detail because I probably talked about this so many times before, but we talk about coming in to this organization where the Atlanta Falcons cap was just it was not good, right? It was not good at all. They got rid of the franchise players, right? And Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. That's the first thing they did when they brought it in. They got rid of both of those guys. What's going on, Michael? They got rid of Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, right? That was probably one of the most unpopular decisions, right? But they made that. They tried to go after Deshaun Watson, right? Go back to that last sentence I talk about doing everything to win a championship, right? That's why that decision was made, right? Now the question is, was it made by Terry or was it made by the owner? We don't really know that 100%. But you know that was something that at the time was not popular. I think a lot of people, got kind of turned off because Atlanta Falcons was trying to pursue Deshaun Watson because of his off-field issues and things like that, right? So, their first draft pick was not conventional, right? They went out and got, Kyle Pitts, right? A lot of people thought they was going to get Justin Fields. We go back to that draft, right? You think about everybody else who was in that draft. Michael Parsons, right? One of the most dynamic pass rushers, where Atlanta Falcons needed all kind of pass rushers, since John Abraham, and he was in that draft, right? Chase was in that draft, right? Jamar Chase was in that draft. So think about it. It was a lot of guys in that draft. Atlanta Falcons when they got Kyle Pitts, right? He was the unicorn, unorthodox. Of course, I think that had a lot to do with the head coach here because he liked to do a lot of tight ends. But, Kyle Pitts was going in the top 10. Nobody think he was. A lot of people probably didn't think he was going number 4, but Atlanta Falcons decided to pick him number 4, right? So they doing it their way, and that's what I'm talking about, doing their way. Now, you go to 5 years later, right? Now he's going into his 5th year, right? With Kyle Pitts, you make you wonder: was that a good decision, right? Like I said, when you pick draft picks, you don't really know how to turn around. And we can go back to that draft. Kyle Pitts is the only guy left from that draft, right? So if you're grading, right, that was not a good draft for this regime. Let's just be honest. When only one player left from the entire draft is on your roster, that's not a good draft. So we're gonna chalk that up, right? And then the next years they went offense, right? In the draft, right? They went and got Kyle Pitts, they got Drake London, they got Bijan Robinson, they got Michael Penix Jr., right? And now finally they went to get defensive players, but they did it their way, despite everybody saying that Atlanta Falcons need to fix their pass rush, right? So once again, Terry Fontenot basically saying we're gonna do it our way. We're convicted in this player. We like this player. Now, for those first round picks, besides Kyle Pitts, right now it looked like they don't have no regrets on those picks, right? We think Drake London is a bona fide number 1 receiver. Bijan Robinson definitely be a generational player. Michael Penix could be the future of the Atlanta Falcons, right? So looking at those picks now, you're like, okay, you get it. However, the Bijan Robinson draft, they didn't get Jalen Carter, who they could have had, for the Philadelphia, that's now with the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champs, right? You look at the guy in Los Angeles right now, that's wrecking shop, right? That was really, really good out of Florida State. Passed up on him, right? So you look at some of the moves that the Atlanta Falcons made, but however, you can't be upset with the talent that they did draft in the first round. So we're gonna be good with that. Okay, of course the controversial pick to get Michael Penix. Right now, like I said earlier, Right now, nobody's calling that a dumb pick anymore. Nobody calling that a dumb pick anymore, right? But at the end of the day, when you talk about this regime, right, they have underachieved on the field, right? You can look at the moves, and we all can like the moves that they made. We can all like the aggressiveness that Terry Fontenot have been in drafts, right? He moves up in drafts. Um, he go get the guy that they convicted with. We always talk about being convicted, so they go get the guy that they want, and he does not hesitate. He's not hesitant to do that. In free agency, he go get guys that they want. Doing a trade, they try, and they not have been successful, right? But they have tried to go get pass rushers, proven pass rushers to bring to this team, right? They just got outbid and things like that. So we see, making moves, but at the end of the day, guys, they have not been successful on the field, right? And that's what you really get judged by, right? So right now, like I said, looking at this article that Terry Fontenot was in, once again, I give you guys the name of the article. It's called Rebels: How Terry Fontenot, the NFL most fearless GM, is driving Atlanta Falcons into title contention. That's what it's called. It's by Tyler Doon, right? So if you want to go look at the article and read some of the things he said, definitely go look at that. But um, what I'm saying is that's their plan, that's their vision. They focus on a championship, right? But right now, at the end of the day, it has not worked, right? So Eric Ryder said Matt Ryan still had a couple seasons left. I agree with that, right? And so let's talk about that for a minute. I wonder is it if you couldn't repair the relationship when they tried to go get Deshaun Watson. I wonder did that ruin that relationship with the team where he wanted to leave, because they tried to get Deshaun Watson. It was, the writing was on the wall, or did they plan on keeping him another season? That's a great question, and make you really wonder, about what would have happened if Matt Ryan would have stayed. Because I agree. I think Atlanta Falcons Matt won the NFC South one of those years if Matt Ryan would have stayed with the team. I do agree with that because a lot of the losses that we had was because of the quarterback play. So that's a great point. You can see him start to to falter a little bit in his his abilities and things like that. However, he still probably would have been the best prospect on the team, especially what we had the last couple of seasons. So that's a great point about um, Matty Ice. What's going on, 330? What's going on, Jay Black? What's going on, T Terry? So um, that's a great question about Matty Ice. Right. So when we look at the history of Terry Fontenot, because of course we don't have another coach now, so this Raheem Morris is going to his second season, but Terry Fontenot, this is I said his fourth year. This actually is his fifth year, right? Because he's riding with Kyle Pitts. That's his first pick he ever made was Kyle Pitts, right? Kyle Pitts. They pick up his fifth year option. A lot of questions about Kyle Pitts. What he going to do this year? In my opinion, you guys heard me say he's the key, right? Atlanta Falcons going to have one of the most explosive offenses. I think Kyle Pitts is going to be the key for that. Um, so, but the history of this regime right now is solid moves, right? Solid. You can see where they really are trying to go for a championship. But look at the moves they made last year. Bringing in Justin Simmons, bringing in Matthew Judon, right? We was excited about that. Bringing in Kirk Cousins, paying him $180 million. We was excited about that. Doubling down, going to get, Michael Penix Jr. to secure the future, so we could have sustained success instead of just, 1 or 2 years, right? That's why they made that pick for Michael Penix Jr., right? Really doubling down this year, looking at how the defense played down the stretch for the Atlanta Falcons and going to get two pass rushers in the first round. Mortgaging one of the draft picks from next year. Matter of fact, mortgaging two draft picks from next year by moving up to going to get a James Pierce, right, and or Xavier Watts. So you can see the moves that they made. It all stays tied to trying to be contenders in this league. That's what it seems like making. The problem is it just has not worked yet, right? And now you get to the question, especially looking at Terry Fontenot here, his fifth season. Is it too late, right? Will Arthur Blank give him time, right? Because now we're starting to see some of the moves. Like you can look at the first two seasons and say, you give him a pass, right? That's the cap year where you got rid of your franchise players, right? That was bad. Um, come in the second year, you know, you just didn't know what you was going to get with Marcus Mariota, and Desmond Ritter. The third year, you find out Desmond Ritter wasn't the guy, right? That fourth year, we was all excited, right? We thought this was going to be the year that Atlanta Falcons was going to be able to be in contention, and it just didn't pan out that way. So it's at what point does you know it looks like it's a failure more than you can see it on the uptick, right? One of the things in the article talk about becoming younger, in for as this team. This is a young team, right? And so when we looking at it, yes, we want to be successful. We want to make the playoffs, but this is a young team, right? It really is. Except probably some offensive linemen looking at Jake Matthews and things like that. But this is a young team, especially in some of the most prominent positions. It's a young team. So the question is, how? How much time will Arthur Blank give Terry Fontenot, right, to finish this out? You can see the vision, right? It's just haven't panned out yet. So that's really when you start thinking about these moves they made, because they bucked the trend, right? You look at the Philadelphia Eagles and the moves they made, right? Everybody talks about how aggressive you know the Philadelphia Eagles GM is, right? We just look at how aggressive, how good the Baltimore Ravens GM is, right? They just went and got Jair Alexander. That secondary is going to be a problem in the AFC North, right? Um, and then you look at it, the Atlanta Falcons, and you say, maybe they could have made some of those moves. So that's why you have to question, the moves. But what we do know from listening to this regime is that they're going to do it their way. The question is it their way going to work? And that's what, at the end of the day, that's what it boiled down to. T. Terry says, um, Ricondo, do you remember when Julio said Matt had a noodle arm? You have to show me where he said that. I don't remember him saying that. I know somebody said that. I don't think Julio ever said that though. So maybe if he said it, you got to tell me where he said that. Um, Somebody else might have said it, but I don't think Julio ever said that. If he did, I could be wrong. I just don't remember him saying that. But that arm was getting weak though. I can agree with you on that. Um, I gave Terry Fontenot a breather because when he first hired Rich McKay was still making final decisions or giving direction despite Terry Fontenot's title. Arthur Smith wanted Pitts and was allowed to go with Rich McKay over Terry Fontenot. Like I said, but I think to me personally, those first two seasons, I'm definitely giving Terry Fontenot a break. I really am. All right, these last two seasons, I still think it's got a little bit to do with coaching. These last two seasons, you look at it, Arthur Smith, and then you know, looking at Jimmy Lake a little bit, right? I just so I think the personnel was there the last two seasons to be in contention to win the NFC South, and I think the coaching kind of failed us on both ends. the last 2 seasons. So um, I'm asking you guys this for you as fans. Personally, for me, I just think this team is young, and I don't like all the turnover. Personally, I think you should build something, right? I think you look at the Detroit Lions, right, and how they built their team, right? It's all about the quarterback. People forget about it too. Like, that's why they was able to. Because think about it, Detroit Lions coach and GM came in the same time the Atlanta Falcons did, right? But the one thing that they had the Atlanta Falcons didn't have was a quarterback, right? So that's the difference in my opinion. Because when you look at talent, I think Atlanta Falcons got a talented roster. Defense was questionable, but especially now. And I think last year, if you look at bringing in additions, Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates was a great hire. I mean, a great pickup in free agency. Keeping AJ Terrell, you know, we still had Grady. I thought the defense wasn't that. The personnel in the defense wasn't that bad. Right now, you look at the way the defense played, that could be a question mark. But at the same time, um, personally for me, I just believe that it has more to do with the coaching and instead of the personnel decisions that's been made with this organization. J Black said Terry Fontenot was neutered his first 3 years until they got Rich McKay out of the way and let Terry first. You know what? And that's a great point because the fact that he was completely moved from football operations tells you a lot. And that might have had a lot to do with it. That's a great point. And a lot of people said that Rich McKay messed up a lot of stuff too. Right. So um hey, I'm not gonna argue on that. We'll never know really, but it does seem that way that Terry Fontenot has kind of found his wings a little bit, since Rich McKay was moved, right? And that move was happened last year, right? It did not happen. So to your point, the first 3 seasons, right? He kind of had the answer to Rich McKay, and now he's flying solo by himself, him and Raheem Morris. So that's a great point. I'm not gonna argue with you on that, and that's definitely where you could see the um the change and how the trajectory can start going up. Great point about Rich McKay. So guys, this is the question. Will this work? Will this work? Right? You know, this great article you put out and going against, you know, the standard way process of how to build a team, right? You know, getting 2 quarterbacks, tying up all that money at one position. Um, Even though other franchise it wasn't a top 10 pick, right? But they have had a quarterback and then they drafted another one. It has happened, so it's not like something new. You know, giving up another first round pick to go get James Pierce Jr. Right? We just got to see, man. I believe it will work, but I believe that it shouldn't be a this year or nothing year for me. And reason I say that because Michael Penix Jr. Is going into his first full season as a starter, right? I think the expectations that we want to have, that we hope we could have, is probably higher than it should be, and that's the point I'm making. I think when you're looking at quarterback going to his first full season, should we see a Jaden Daniel year, right? That's we hope we see something like that, right? That's what we want to see, and it could definitely happen. It's not like it's out the question that could be what happens this year, but you know most of the times young quarterbacks it take them time you know to get it right. If they gave up on Peyton Manning his first year when he threw like 30 interceptions, right? Um, Indianapolis Colts when they never had the success they had, right? And you have to have patience, right? So I get it. Terry Fontenot been here 5 years, right? And people want to see a change. And I don't know. And my point is, it's like it's unfinished. It's an unfinished product because to me, it's just starting to get it rolling, right? Those first 3 seasons under this regime, it's totally different than what we have now. Like you look at the personnel, look at the coaching, everything is different. Yes, the GM is the same, but if you go look at the moves that the GM has made, you know, past those 3 years, like I say, that first draft was bad, right? But you look at some of the moves after that, you kind of like what you see, right? That's what you like. You like the free agency additions. You like the way he maneuvered the roster, right? And it all is going down to put this team in contention, but it's not for 1 year. And that's why you see the young talent on this team, right? Trying to build. So for me, when the question is, will it work? I think it needs time. I think when we look at the Atlanta Falcons organization to where it is today, right? I think it's going in the right direction, but to expect the Atlanta Falcons to be this finished product in 2025, I think it's just a little bit too much, just for me. Now I'm hoping they hit the ground and they shock the world. I really do. I hope they can in and everybody start hitting on all cylinders. But right, just the expectations of having 2 rookie pass rushers come out and be dominant, that would be great. And it could happen. But if it doesn't happen, is it a failure? No, it's not. It's you got to give these guys chance, man. You got to give them chance to get their feet wet. So I'm just being a realist, guys. I've been an Atlanta Falcons fan a long time, and for me to come out and want to see the organization start all over again in 2026 because the Atlanta Falcons didn't meet, be ahead of schedule per se. Because that's what I think. If the Atlanta Falcons do something good this year, man, they're going to be good for a long time. Because they have all the pieces. We do agree to that. And if Michael Penix, it can do what we want him to do. And I'm not saying he ain't going to do it. But if he don't do it, I don't think it's, we don't have our quarterback. I think that he's on his first full season as a quarterback. And he got to learn the NFL game. And if anybody watch, the history of NFL, right, that's not an easy thing to do, right? Look at pass rushers. I think Turn Walk put out a article about successful pass rushers coming out and being real dominant, right? It's rare. It's really rare, right? You have a couple that has came out and did. Hopefully we got a couple. Like, just being honest, I hope we do. But if they don't come out and they get like 3 sacks, is that a failure? And if you're looking at that way, you're kind of expectations for this team is probably higher than it should be because this team is where it's at. So, and I think it's going the right direction. So, just to end this thing off for me, when I'm thinking about it, and you have to like their approach because it's their approach, right? And like I said in this article, one thing that he talks about is the fact that everything that they do, every move they make, it's about putting this team in championship contention, being a contender year in and year out. And the moves that we have seen him make the last 2 seasons, right? When Raheem Morris got here, because like I said, we're going to give him a pass, especially those first 3 years. And like Jay Black said, with Rich McKay on that one, in the mix, right? The drafting, doubling down on the quarterback position. So I'm just talking about the last 2 seasons, doubling down on the quarterback position. This year, doubling down on the pass rush. It seems like they want to fix what ails the Atlanta Falcons. And that's what you like to see, going in the right direction, going in the right directions. 2 of the most, important positions in NFL, the Atlanta Falcons has doubled down on both of those positions the last 2 seasons, right? So you gotta like the direction. And for me, trying to make a regime change because the Atlanta Falcons don't get what we put these high expectations on these guys this year, you know, why should they change? Just the way I look at it. Now it comes down to coaching, right? It's going to be big. This is a big year for Raheem Morris, though. I do believe that his coaching staff, because I believe the talent is there, and they can get these young guys to speed up their process. That would be awesome, right? You look at it. You look at the Rams. You look at Jared Verse and how those guys just took off, right? That's what we want to see from this Atlanta Falcon team, right? We want to see those young guys take off, right? We want to see Rook Roro take off. We want to see, um, you know, Brandon Dorlus take off, right? You want to see Zach Harrison do what he do. Definitely want to see Jalen Walker, James Pierce do what they do, right? We just want to see Jesse Bates, Kay Nellis, AJ Terrell continue doing what they've been doing, right? But so the coaching staff is huge in 2025. But from a front office standpoint, I think the pieces have been put there for the coaching staff to bring the best out in this team. So the question, should they be on the hot seat? In my opinion, no. I have said this before. I said it about Arthur Smith once. So it depends on how this season go. Now, if Raheem Morris comes out and he stink up the joint, yes, yeah, you got to do what you got to do. But I believe he got a good coaching staff around him. I think he have learned from his mistakes from his past coaching gig years ago, and I don't think he want to have those mistakes again. So definitely, definitely, personally for me, um, will it work? Time will tell, but I don't believe that this should be our make or break year for this, rendition of the Atlanta Falcons coaching staff and front office. We said Terry probably will get promoted in a couple of years to president and assistant GM. Smith will be the GM, yeah, because you're right, they probably want to keep Kyle Smith. I agree with you 100%. They definitely probably want to keep him because he's really, really good. He said Cleveland drafted 2 quarterbacks this draft, so we're not the only ones to do it. Yeah, but the only difference with Cleveland doing it is they drafted one in the third round, one in the fifth round, right? We paid one $180 million, and then we drafted one in the top 10. So it's a little different. Um, but you're right. They did draft 2, and they're trying to get their quarterback situation figured out because, and the Cleveland Browns are in a totally different situation than us because they have their defense is definitely talented, and the only thing holding them back is the quarterback play. I really believe that. So, um, you look at their defense, it's stacked. And the only thing that, in my opinion, holding those guys back is the offensive side of the ball, and that's in particular the quarterback position. So, great point, but it's a little different. We paid him $180 million, and now that guy is our $37 million backup quarterback. So yeah, the potential ceiling is high. If the management can get out of the team, the Falcons will be relevant. Yes, and that's where it really boils down to, right? I don't think we're upset about the talent on the team. I don't think none of us is upset about the talent on the team. I don't believe that. I think we're all excited about the talent on the team, but to get the best out of these guys is what it's going to take, for the expectations that we have now. Like, if so, me, even when I gave my predictions, when I look at the win and losses, I'm always looking at things glass half full. So I'm not sitting here telling you guys that their Falcons are going to be bad because they're young. I'm looking at everything. If it work out like we hope it work out, they're going to be really good. But if they don't, it's okay because they're young, and long we see progressions throughout the season where they're getting better and better and better and better, and then because if we go look at the Detroit Lions, right, that that season before they start to be relevant, they lost like their first 10 games or something like that, and then they went on that they had that winning streak towards the end, and they carried that into the next season, and that's what we want to see. We can see something like that for our Atlanta Falcons, right? And because see, the problem with the Falcons is that they start off good and then they falter towards the back half of the season. So if it's different, just say they start off bad, but they start playing good towards the end of the season, you can see them improving. The problem we have been seeing in the last couple of years is the Falcons been good to start the season, and then they falter off towards the end and put us out of contention. So that's where you need to see the change in this team, being able to play good in December and January, vice September, October, right? We want to see them play good in the later half of the season, November, December, January, not September and October, because at that point you're not getting you're not getting, desired outcome. So that's what I'm trying to say, guys. That's what I'm trying to say. So definitely, guys, give me your thoughts on what you think. Like I said, please go out and read that article by Tyler Doon talking about Terry Fontenot and how it seemed like his rebellious nature of how he's building the Atlanta Falcons, going against traditional means of how to build a team, right? And like make the NFL world so upset about the things he do. Um, will you think it work? I do personally, but we just will have to see. Give me your thoughts on that, guys. Had to come in and talk about our Falcons today. Um, we still got a ways away to go before those guys are be back in action, and we're definitely going to start talking about all those things as well. But there you have it. Let me know what you think about Terry Fontenot, and do you think he should be on the hot seat this year? Will his, you know, aggressive approach and going against the grain actually work and create a championship contender in the Atlanta Falcons? This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Peace.